right. We have a question up next from Jake YT7. It says, I just had a conversation with a work colleague about retirement planning. They told me they don't want to know their number. They are afraid it will be a suffocating chain around their neck. Have you heard this before? And what would you say? And I would go so far, I don't think you think it's a suffocating number around your neck, Bo, to know your number.
No.
And so what do you think of it as?
Man,
what is it to you?
What a it's like going, well, okay, this is a bit of a dire example, but this is the one that immediately came to mind. Man, I'm having some chest pains.
Oh.
But I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to go to find out well, if you ignore that, what's going to happen is if those chest pains are a bad thing, there's going to be a bad outcome that exists there. If you're thinking about going to retirement, I don't want to know the number, don't want to know if I have enough, don't know if I'm prepared for it, then what you may be setting yourself up for is a bad outcome. When on the other side of the coin, if you can assess and diagnose and triage early on, okay, where am I at today? Where do I want to be in the future? Okay, what's the gap? How do I begin to take the steps to get there? I don't think it should be that way. What I've actually found is for most folks, when they know their number, it's a little bit freeing. They get to say, holy cow, I had no idea that I was this far along. Because what you don't want to do is, and we've seen this, we've had this conversation before. Someone said, hey, I turned 65, whatever. I turned 65 in 2 years and I'm going to retire. And we'll be like, okay, great. That's awesome. Why 65? I'll be Medicare age. Okay, awesome. Great. What's your burn rate? How much you spend? Don't know. Okay, well, let's ballpark. Well, I know my paycheck is this much, and so I got this much left over, so I think I spend this much. Okay, great. When you retire, do you want to live at that same lifestyle, or do you want to live differently? Well, I want to do the same thing, but I want to travel. I want to go see the world. I've worked so hard. Okay, great. Well, let's add a travel budget plus that. And we do the math. We'll say, well, based on the lifestyle that you think you want to live, plus the additional things you want to do, like travel, and then we have healthcare and those kind of things. At 65, with the pot of money you have, just counting on Social Security, you're not going to be able to do that. And we've had to have this conversation with folks before where we say, hey, to do what you want to do, you have to work at least till 67, probably 68. And we're going to have to, if you don't know that, you don't want to go into retirement blind on a hope and a prayer, because that's not going to just put food on the table. You have to make sure that you're planning for it and thinking about it accordingly. So I think what I would rather know is, hey, okay, I'm 55. I have 10 years until retirement. I've got this window. Okay, where am I today? Okay, I'm a little behind. What choices can I make today to catch up? Is catching up even possible? Because if you get to 64 and you start your retirement planning for 65, you don't have a lot of time to change a whole lot. But if you're 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out,
you have more options.
You have so many options. You have so much time that you can begin to assess that. So I would encourage them. This is a situation, a scenario where I do not think that ignorance is bliss. I think that ignorance is ignorant, and I feel that, and that's like a cold, hard way to say that.
But you're right. All your examples are sobering, but they're right on.
But there's some, and there's somebody saying, "Oh, I'm never going to retire. I know I can't." Well, that's different. If you just say, "Hey, look, I've not saved. I've squandered it. I'm just going to work, and I'm going to keel over at the office." And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. So there's a lot of people that don't want to retire. If you want to work as long as you physically can, there is nothing wrong with that. I just don't want people delusionally chasing financial independence, but not taking the steps that are required to get there.
Right.
It's like me setting out, saying, hey, I'm going to swim 100 miles into the ocean and back. If I've not trained for that at all, you know what? That might not be the undertaking that I want it to be. So if you can put a little bit of time, a little bit of thought, a little bit of effort on the front end, I don't think it has to be what was a burden, a yoke, a nuisance? What was the word?
A suffocating chain around their neck.
Suffocating chain around their neck. I think what's more suffocating is getting there and recognizing you don't have any options.
Yeah.
Getting there and recognizing, okay, I got to make Social Security work. And a lot of people do that. I think 40% of retired Americans right now say that Social Security is their primary source of income in retirement. And that's fine so long as you understand that going into it. What I don't want to see happen is, okay, you work, live at this level. You live a lifestyle where you're not deferring gratification. You're living at the top of your means. And then you leave work and all that's there is a social safety net. That's just not going to
be a massive change.
It's going to be a big change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big change.
And I will say, like, clearly there's like some mindset things going on or an experience here that this colleague that's affecting this colleague's perception of this, right? But I will say too, you have more options than you think when calculating your retirement number.
Absolutely.
It's not like you have to have some exorbitant amount of money. Like in that example you gave, like maybe the cold water is like, oh, well, you're not going to be able to travel as much, which might be disappointing, but like, oh, but you could still retire with this much income per month. Like you have like different levers you can pull, and the more time you have, the more levers you have to pull. And in fact, if this is a younger colleague, it's even a cooler conversation because like you might be surprised, like not that much money invested a month could get you a lot. You know, like it's actually a pretty exciting conversation to like just offer another perspective. Like, well, I look at it like this.
And that, like, again, if it's a young person, go check out the Wealth Multiplier, moneyguide.com/resource, a Wealth Multiplier. There's even a tool there where you can like play with it together. I would just hate for someone to get to the end, to get to like retirement and say, man, if I would have only changed this thing, if I would have only given up that country club member. I mean, that's a ridiculous example, but if I'd only, if I would have not bought that luxury car and would have instead paid cash and invested that money, if I would have not, it's so easy. The longer the timeline is, the level of significance required behind the decisions is so small, but the impact is so huge. So the earlier you can figure it out, the better. I just do not think I would bury my head in the sand on that one.